Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here on Dark Hour Paranormal. We're going to give you a quick update as to how the trip is going. I can tell you a little bit about what we've been doing, and of course, opening the floor to any questions that you guys have coming in. Thanks for being here. So, as you know, a handful of us came down to Belize with archaeological intentions, which we have been following up on, and I have to say, as arduous as it is, trekking into these jungle lands, it's absolutely fascinating and builds a lot of character, considering the environment and so forth. So we're also privy to some of these other sites that have been excavated already, Louboutin being one of them. Just absolutely incredible to be by some of these different structures. The energy in each of these sites is vastly different, although some people have claimed to visit one, go into another one, and say, well, there's a similarity here. But honestly, it's different to me, and that's what I've felt. But excuse me, before we get into any of this here, I'm just going to say hello to a couple of you. What's that for?
Oh, sorry, you on a call?
I'm live. I'm testing.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, Jared says hello.
That's the key to the other 4x4 Jeep.
Okay.
And I'm on doing
Oh, you're heading off to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Angela's on the phone. There's the other Jeep. I'm going to get back on with her, but
okay,
since you're on with everyone,
come say hi.
Sorry.
Come say hello.
Angela can't hear you, but hi, everyone. There we go. Gotta go do some crazy, weird Mayan pyramid research stuff. Bye.
Essentially, and that's what our everyday is like. We have people behind the scenes who are aiding in this effort. We have people who are here, obviously coming from America to do this work. We also have individuals who are prominent within certain communities, looking to move forward with particular sites that they may be curating and so forth. So we're building an opportunity not only to be here for this time, which again has been incredibly fruitful for the first week we've been here, but we are setting the stones, so to speak, up for the next jaunt, and it may lend an entirely different experience if that's the case. Jeanette, welcome to the show. Good to see you. Long Island Bigfoot, my man. Guys, check out Long Island Bigfoot if you haven't already. He's absolutely fantastic with the content that he covers, and he's always in the woods, like a second home to him. Tony, what's up, brother? Unfortunately, I cannot, as this is just to be a test. Jim Goodall is here with us.
Hey, how's it going? We're having a good time. I've given blood to the Mayan gods on what 2 occasions at least, 11 stitches, and but we're having a time. And it's I couldn't go into the deep canopy jungle with the crew yesterday because I had to walk in brackish water and this river water. You don't want to do that with open wounds, even though they're sutured up. But we're going to drive in tomorrow, and it's going to be nothing but a kick in the butt, and right. a great group of guys here, and men and women. And right now there's 7 of us, but 3 more are coming in today. So we're going to have a full complement of crazy people wanting to wander through the jungles of Belize. And there's places in here that are absolutely breathtaking. There's places in here that, I mean, I heard you couldn't see but about 2 or 3 feet in front of you in the deep canopy jungle. And if it wasn't for Hector, whacking away a trail, this is an older local guy. He defies the laws of physics. But great group, I love it. We're having a very, very wonderful time. Punta Gorda's funky. It's a small little village of about 6,000 people. Most of the roads in town are, well, they say some of them are paved. I question it.
Maybe a one time.
Yeah, they've been cratered, but it's fun. Hot, humid, probably inside the canopy, under the canopy yesterday. I figured if it was 90 degrees, the dew point had to be 89.9 degrees.
Yeah.
So the relative humidity was almost 100%. So, but
thank you.
That's what adventures are all about.
Thanks.
That's exactly what it is. Thank you very much, Jim. This is just a test to see if I can do this because the internet here is very spotty, as you can imagine. But there's more of it than I realized. It's a matter of just catching it on the right time. John P. Adventures, what's up, brother? Thank you for being here. I know I've missed a couple people. Let me just go back real quick. Tony, you asked any evidence? Well, the short answer to that is yes. That's as much as I can go forward with that at the moment. And you know, we're putting together something comprehensive so that, you know, we will be presenting this the correct way, and you will get the most out of what we're doing as a result. What do you want? Keys? Okay. We're making it happen here. We're making it work. Josie, what's up? Thank you for being here with us. And I know there are a few more in here, but I'm going to get you as we go. So Jim was mentioning a fellow that we have with us within this party, let's say. He is an indigenous individual to the area. He is one of the last great bushwhackers, is how he's been described to me. And honestly, if it weren't for this gentleman, we wouldn't be able to do anything along the lines of getting into that jungle, because once you get in there, you can get in there 10 feet and you're already disoriented. You don't know which way is north, south, east, west. But this experienced guy really has a handle on the forest, and he's been in there his whole life. I think he grew up in a village with, what was it, 6 houses, I think. Yeah, 6-house village. That's where he grew up, 6 families. And so he's very versed and familiar with the jungle and its different augmentations based on the seasons and the environments and so forth. You will see footage of that individual, and I'm sure you will agree with me as well. Now, people might ask, well, what's it like trailblazing through, you know, the jungles of Belize? I'll tell you, it's like sitting in traffic in the hottest, most humid day that you can imagine, only to move a foot every, you know, few minutes, because it's so dense. We're just cutting through, and we have to forge these paths. And many times we can go backwards as we, you know, head back out, but the trail is so undefined. There are how do I put it? Indicators that need to be set in place. So we have string that we brought with us, and the idea of that is the sort of Hansel and Gretel approach, where we tie a string to a tree near the coastline where we disembark, head up through the woods while we kind of just drag that string. But you have to keep in mind, in some of these jaunts, we're going several kilometers walking into the jungle. So I mean, you have to have a lot of string. So there's another method that this guide Hector has been showing us, and essentially what you're doing is you're marking trees. So we're walking there with machetes, of course, to clear out that brush, and every so often he'll mark one of these trees. Now, the place that we are has a lot of different fauna and, you know, plant life and so forth, and there are many mahogany trees down here, and where we are is kind of known for this particular production, or at least has been utilized that way in the past. What you'll find is that the guys out there working on the mahogany farms, in order to kind of mark where they see the trees, which are, you know, peppered amongst the rest of the foliage and so forth, they take a small stick, make an incision into the tree or a branch, and then they insert this little stick and point it towards where the mahogany tree is, so they can come back at a later date and farm this. Well, sometimes you don't get back for 6 months, 8 months, a year. And so this little stick grows into the tree and becomes a part of that tree, still, you know, on the angle of where it's pointing and guiding whoever comes up. Really curious. I've never seen anything quite like that. And of course, it makes sense to use, you know, your surroundings when you're trying to do something like that. I'm going to leave a moment open for questions. I haven't, as I'm talking, I'm kind of focusing on that. I see a few things that you guys are mentioning in the chat. Again, thank you all for being here. This is really unique, this whole experience. We have lizards. I mean, and those of you who are from tropical areas will know what this is like. And I'm not just talking about these little gecko lizards, which are out there too. We're talking about half-sized Komodo dragons just walking about. I went down to the property. We're right on the sea's edge here of the Caribbean. When you look out during the night, you see the light pollution from Nigeria, which is really curious. Walked down here the other morning and literally almost stepped on one of these guys. He scurried out, you know, as soon as, you know, I realized he was there. I got startled. And as I heard this, I noticed to my left, there was another larger sounding entity, whatever it was, coming through the brush, and became startled at this as well. Given the moment, I noticed there was a guy on a bike asking me, "You all right?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't expect to see this enormous lizard just sitting right out in the front yard here." But it's very commonplace. They kind of find themselves, even within civilization, they're out there hanging out. and I find that very, very interesting. Now, to get to some of what we're doing here, I put up a picture last night of the ball court that the Mayans and many was it Mesoamerican cultures were using throughout uh, for different reasons. I mean, essentially, this ball game, people have studied this to some degree. We only know so much about it, but you know, it was a life or death sort of thing. Everything dealt with the celestial movements and agriculture and the blessings to that. So sacrifices would be made all the time. Now, again, the game wasn't always played on such high stakes. Sometimes people played for entertainment or gambling purposes, but really, when it came down to it, that's what it was for. You had a dispute against somebody else. Guys are getting into conflict. They would resolve it this way. Even keeping certain nations, or I should say tribes, from going into warlike conflict, they would actually play this game, and the winner would be honored in that way. Many times, these warriors would enter into the game, and the prize would be the honorary sacrifice, and that you'd be, if you won, you die. So things have changed a little bit as time has gone on, but still, this is very deeply ingrained in our history and our cultures, depending where you are on the earth. The sites themselves are absolutely amazing. As I started to tell you a little bit about the feelings people have gotten, there is an experience that I had at the very first site that we went to. I'll save that for a little bit later, but suffice to say, it was incredibly familiar. Now, I've been to other ruins, but I don't think I've been to Mayan ruins. I've been to Incan ruins, I've been to Aztecs. It's a different feeling, of course, and the culture and the time that is past. There are many civilizations that have lived there, possibly before them, and certainly after them. And it's like America's Stonehenge, where you have these traces of other cultures that have come in and made their home there for possibly thousands of years, and yet still some of the original antiquity of that particular location is there to be observed. So the cultures were kept. Not in all cases. People would come in and they'd loot and they'd take things that they weren't supposed to, and that's generally the course as time went on. But nonetheless, we still have plenty to work with. The only problem is, much like other subjects that we've tried to explore that are lost in the folds of time, only a very small percentage of what we have in our hands, which, in total seems quite significant. We can draw at least some sort of picture that tells us, what we have and, maybe what it was used for, certain pottery and so forth. We can go into, the everyday sort of things. But so much of this, I'd say, around about 90-95% is lost to time. So we'll never completely have the full picture. And there are cultures that they knew existed, at least in theory or intent, but we can't find any trace of them. So vast amounts of time, there's activity, but we just don't know who it was. Really, really interesting stuff, guys. I have to be honest with you. I'm really happy that I came down here. We have a great group of people that we're working with, all very passionate about these topics and subjects. Very diverse individuals in respect to personality, but there is a very strong synchronicity that we all share. Of course, gravitating energetically within the projects to each other, as it should be, and naturally, right? So that being said, there's no real contention that sometimes people find with working with other people, especially at this level, in a tense environment like the jungle, where your survival relies on a handful of small things. For example, if we got out, sorry, Jim, if we got out there, right, we take a 16-mile boat ride out to where we're heading. Takes about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes in a boat. When we get through the mangroves that we traverse these very small channels that are canoeing channels, essentially. If we get there, disembark, go out into the woods, come back, and the boat's gone, we're fucked. There's nothing anybody can do, because there's where we are, there are islands, and to visit one of these things, and somehow the boat gets loose, somebody comes and takes it. That's it. You're pretty much stuck there. I don't know what we would do. There's no communication. There's no signal out there. People have asked me, well, why aren't you being a little more communicative, lightly and gently? But the truth is, there's just not that signal out here. We can't do that. So I've been walking around old school with a phone that doesn't work, other than to take pictures and film. and then coming back at night and doing my best to work the internet service.
It is the being out in the jungle. I haven't been in the deep canopy with the guys because of my injury on Monday, but we are in the absolute middle of nowhere in that part of the jungle. There is nothing, and everything there is designed to survive in a harsh environment and kill people who aren't supposed to be there.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the owner has been there for 40 years. He's only seen 3 snakes in 40 years. They don't like us, but the snakes they have here aren't the gopher snakes or the king snakes. These are the vipers that when you bite you, you better just sit down, make your way with God and wait for the inevitable, because it's coming. I wouldn't swap this, for maybe for $1 million, and I'd come back the next week. But I the group that's here, like Michael said, everybody's a lot of diverse ideas and strong personalities. And other than me giving blood, no one has drawn blood. And that's a real accomplishment all on its own.
Not like Jim has, and I'll very briefly explain what happened. So we went to Louboutin for our first outing. As soon as we got settled in, we we got in there. I'll here, put your leg up here, Jim.
Yeah,
if you can. So what ended up happening? All right.
I don't know if you can see it. Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it well enough, but it's he got stitched up. What'd you get? 7 stitches?
11.
11 stitches?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man. So we're at Louboutin, and we start going off, and Jared and I are in the back. These guys went ahead and ended up finding some guy on the property that I guess was thinking that I'm a tour guide. Truth was, he wasn't. He was a ranger, and I think had business to be there, maybe not. Either way, he gave that group a little bit of a tour, and Jared and I were off looking for specific things that we had spoken to the curator about. Now, it started to rain a little bit while we were filming, and then all of a sudden, the sky opened up, and I'm talking monsoon buckets of water. So Jared and I are underneath a canopy thinking we're going to be okay, and it just doesn't let up. If it had, then yeah, we wouldn't have gotten that wet, but it just kept coming. So we ended up kind of making our way towards the visitor center, which wasn't too far away, but at this point we are absolutely soaked. And we're getting down the stairs. We end up meeting with the other group. Apparently Jim had fallen on those stairs just before we got there, and had another little mishap just towards the bottom of the stairs, which I did see, but the damage was already done. So everybody very quickly walked into action, or snapped into action, I should say. And we got Jim cleaned up and bandaged up. Everybody worked as a team effort. We have medical kits with us. We certainly prepared for something to go this direction. As much as this ranger, wanted to help, we asked him to go and grab something, from the main office. So he came back with 2 old Band-Aids that wouldn't have, Jim might as well have just eaten the Band-Aids. That's what they were good for. So, after that, we got in the car, and the decision was made that we should probably head over to the hospital and have this looked at, or at least cleaned out a little bit better, because you don't want to mess around with infection out in these woods. You just don't want to do it. So we get him down to the hospital, and it was a clinic.
Village,
yeah,
probably maybe 500 people, 400 people.
Maybe if that.
There's a medical center.
Mm-hmm. So we get down there, and we end up waiting. It's not a traditional wait, but it's the medical office. You're going to wait a little bit. And Jim gets in there, and sure enough, they clean him up, and they end up giving him 11 stitches. They have socialized medicine down here, so he was given the proper things to go home with: antibiotics, Tylenol. Didn't cost a dime, which I can't be more grateful for that. And next thing you know, Jim's over in the other room there. We're all out here waiting for him, and concerned, making sure he's going to be okay. And he's in there taking pictures with the doctors, handing out business cards. They're interested in knowing him and what he does, and having great conversations and making buddies with everybody, as Jim does. So we were really happy to see him come out with such a big spirit. But man, as I mentioned on that post, he's a warrior. And anybody else might have said, you know what, I'm done with this trip. I'm just going to lay up for the rest of the time. Jim was like, when do I get to go out next? So he's been very good and patient about going into the water, because you can't avoid it. when you're out in the jungle, you have to go through that kind of water. And very soon he'll be able to join us on those expeditions. Let me tell you a little bit about what it's like to get into the jungle by a vehicle. All right. These roads are cut by the people that own the property. And, we're in Jeeps, relatively safe, but the bends and the dips, the potholes, if you would call them this way, the contours of the land,
The craters.
Yeah. I mean, you're literally catching air off some of these things. People are bouncing in the car like this, back and forth, side to side. We're getting jarred and beat up just from getting into the jungle. But sure enough, we do. And it's, of course, very slow moving. But we have a truck that's in front of us. Think of a semi truck, but cut in half. Okay. I don't know what it's called, but that's what it is. We keep all the tools and the stuff in the back. This thing's, bouncing like this, just about to topple over. We're getting stuck in the mud. We have to come up with inventive ways to get it out of the mud. We've tried winches when you wrap it around a tree, you pull yourself up this way. Sometimes that doesn't work. Get out there with some hand cutters, start cutting down the forest and throwing this underneath the wheels to gain traction. It's the mud out there is not like, mud that you would think you go out in the woods, start playing around and what have you. Clay is a big composition within this, and this clay, it just sticks to you. It sticks to the tires, makes the tires bald. You've got 3 inches of this muck on the bottom of your foot just from walking out of the car. It's unbelievable how this clay kind of sticks to everything. So it's certainly no easy jaunt, and you do need to kind of keep in mind what you have for time, because even out in the boat, we get stuck after dark, we're also screwed. There's no light, so then you're not getting back in the dark over the Caribbean 16 miles, sometimes being 5 miles off the coast just to go around some of the reefs that do exist here. And of course, you have to have a captain's license to pilot one of these boats. It's a very highly regarded license. You have to go through quite a bit. I think the government itself actually issues it, because if you don't know where you're going, you will wreck your boat, and that's about it. I mean, history will tell you exactly that is the case. Many have been wrecked off these shores. But generally, this is where we're going. I am withholding a bit here because I want to give it to you all in the right way, and believe me, that time will come. But if you'd like to ask some questions, you have anything pressing, go ahead and throw it in the chat at the moment. I'll continue to talk here, but keep an eye on that. Going into the jungle, Jim mentioned everything wants to kill you. This is true, as you would imagine. But at the same time, it's things that you might not expect. So you're looking for insects, you're looking for snakes, certain predators. The trees themselves have spikes that are as long as my finger, and there are numerous spikes. If you lean into one of these, it's going to be a really bad day. They break off like quills of a porcupine. You have to kind of pull them out one by one, and they're barbed, as Jim just mentioned, which is absolutely no fun. The razor grass, for those of you who are not familiar with razor grass, you just look at this stuff and you're bleeding. I've got all kinds of cuts and slices, and this is just a soft brush. It's like this. You just walk by it, and the thing it's razor, just cuts right through you. I don't know how well anybody can see some of this stuff, but again, half the time when it happens, it just feels like a light touch. Next thing you know, it's burning. I was bit by a spider yesterday while I was out in the woods. This thing was a little guy. He was black and orange red. Not the best colors you want to see on an animal, an insect, biting you in a tropical place. And once he got me, it hurt like hell. And there's a particular tree. I think that's it over there, Jim. Actually, okay. I'll show you guys. Yeah, I'm gonna bring some of what I need to over here. I don't know if I'm in range if I bring it over there, but I'll show you what I'm gonna talk about here. This tree has a specific type of bark. When you kind of run your hand along it, comes off, it flakes off, and you just grind it up into a powder. And you rub this on a bite or a sting, and by some miracle, it actually takes away the swelling, it takes away the pain. And when I heard this, I thought, yeah, okay, great. That's probably the case. I don't know. And then I got bitten, and I said, well, I've got to try this. Let me grab this, some of this stuff. I'll show you. God, I can't remember the name of it though. It's a 2-worded name, like Limpy Gimpy or something like that, something along those lines. But this is the bark. Okay, you just crush it up and you rub it on the wound, and the pain went away within, I'd say, about 10-15 minutes, and the swelling went down within about an hour. And today I still have the mark, but it's literally just a little red mark. That's all it is. So as much as the forest will try to kill you, if you know what you're doing, it'll actually heal you. So that's always good to know. And again, we've heard about this, we've read about it, we studied it in textbooks, but to actually deal with this is a completely different story. Yeah, Paul. These spiders. Yeah, I mean, I was lucky it was a small one because as we go through the mangrove, you're getting slapped in the face with these branches, and I noticed on one, literally about 6 inches from my face, there was a spider about the size of a $50, or actually one of those old silver dollars, just sitting there waiting, for whatever it was waiting for. Yeah, I kind of moved very quickly at that point. I don't want any run-ins with things that are that big. I've seen them, quarter size down here, the big black ones with very bulbous bodies. I stay far, far away for what that's worth. Let's see if you guys have any questions that I missed. Yeah, Mike, Long Island Bigfoot. Yeah, when you got stung in Montauk, that was some ironic shit right there. Yeah, I mean, you were, for all intents, messing around with Brian and I from across the other side. I don't know if you were throwing sticks or whatever it was. Next thing you know, you get popped right above the eye with a yellow jacket or a hornet, whatever it ended up being. But poor guy was walking around, half his face out to here, distended. Felt so bad, man. Of course, it kind of ruined the rest of the trip for you, brother. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to be as safe as we can, but there's no way that you don't come up against this stuff. I mean, the first day I walked through the jungle, I was doing it with no shirt on until I started getting sliced up in the back of my shoulder blades. And I was like, I should probably put a shirt on. But your inclination is to not wear a shirt because it's so freaking hot. Let's see what else we got here. Long sleeves, that's what they tell you. Angel wings, they tell you to wear long sleeves. In fact, our guide wears a nice blue button-down dress shirt when he goes into the forest. So he's ready for any sort of meeting that happens out there, as well as getting us through to the next destination. It's deeper than a cat scratch, Tony, and it stings. And for whatever reason, the ocean right now out here, the salt content is very high. So in any normal situation, you could throw your wound into the salt water and this would be fine. It would actually heal it up, dry it out. It kind of does the opposite here, and it hurts like hell. It burns like fire when it gets into these wounds. So I wasn't expecting to see that. I'm just going through here. Bear with me. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, no bees either. No bees. I'm all set with that. And there's some big, big insects down here that fly around. Oh, quick point of note where we're staying in Punta Gorda. We have a very nice accommodation. This is wonderful. We can come back. We can relax. It's quaint. Not too loud. Not too many people. A couple folks just showed up, but we started here on our own. Like we were the only people here. Right next door, some of you I've mentioned this to. Right next door, we have an old graveyard. Then we have some newer interments too, but by and large, there's a majority of families and people that have been here for a very long time. They put these graves or sarcophagi on the top because the water table will cause problems in respect to digging and what have you. Now that's pretty interesting. I literally just walk over to the next property and you're on this 3 or 4 block stretch of cemetery. To my right, in the house next door, this guy's front yard, there's a very small Confederate cemetery. What the hell is that, you might ask? Confederates down in Belize? Well, yeah, when they lost the war, they said, screw this, we're out of here. And they moved down to Belize. There's a very large and celebrated cemetery up the way that is a Confederate cemetery. And it's full of these folks that came down here after that war when the North won, and they settled here. So that is actually not something I was terribly familiar with. I'm sure some of you history buffs are like, I can't understand why you didn't know that. But it went under my radar, and I had to kind of look into it and learn about it. Now, we have yet to visit that big one, but I can certainly take some shots of the one that's next door. A lot of these gravestones are in disrepair and crumbling, being there for so long and not having the proper care taken to them. But each one of these are historical sites, and they're open to the public. Yes, New Orleans, John Appleby is the same type of interment. Most places that are close to the water like this, again, the water table is much higher than you'll find it inland, and it's just not possible to dig down and bury somebody when the water starts 2 feet from where you start digging. So it just makes more sense to do that. Put them on the top. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah. Yeah, believe it. Confederate soldiers, people of the Confederacy came down in this way. The local cuisine is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I did it. Okay. I'm only doing it once. It's really good down here. And there's a diverse menu wherever you go. Dollar is 2 to 1. So you can go out at the end of your night, have a couple drinks, have a nice meal, and you're going to spend $15. If you really want to get a little saucy, you spend 20. But I mean, how many people can say you go out to the bar and get a bite to eat and a couple beers doesn't run you 30, $40 at the end of the day? It's just not the case here. It's kind of nice coming into that environment. But there's one thing that I think some people who visit this area are not prepared for, and that is when you go into a restaurant or a bar and you order something to either drink or eat, sit back for a couple hours. You're going to be waiting for it. It doesn't matter. I mean, you want a mixed drink, you're going to wait half hour, 35 minutes for this thing to come. Then you order your food, good another 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours before you see it. When it comes out, it's hot and fresh, but they make each one of these dishes individually. From as far as I can tell, there's nothing in terms of quantity. So all the love is really in the presentation. It's in the food. It's in the flavor. And, save for one incident within the group, nobody's really had too much issue with their stomach, but the person that had that issue didn't get it here. It happened during a layover, while we were coming down this way. So yeah, nothing but good things to say about the people here. It's customary to say hello. I guess I read that at some point, you're kind of looking into this. I mean, you're not supposed to initiate, but I don't know why you wouldn't greet and say hello. I've been doing it just fine and people are responsive, but everybody you see, to the old, to the young, they're all very polite, say hello, and they seem to be willing to help if you need something or at least a bit of advice. So yes, everything is going very well out here. Miss you guys back home, but you know what? We'll get there soon enough, but not too soon. And again, we are, putting some things in motion so that this is not the only time that we come out here and do this type of work. This can be cumulative in a large way so that we continue to build in an upward fashion and really meet our vision of what we want to present in respect to evidence and versus the theories that are out there, how we may expound upon those, how we may actually prove something differently with those, whatever the case may be. We're having a great time doing just that. But all right, I'm gonna let everyone go here. Well, actually, no, I'm not. I got one more person to introduce you to who just decided to pop on in. This is Tyler. Tyler, you can tell them a little bit about yourself.
You might know me, Tyler from Journey to Truth podcast down here. And well, you already know where we're at. I'm sure you guys told them about the whole trip. Jim's sacrificing his blood to the Mayans gods. I really came over here because we're thinking about going to get some lunch.
Oh, okay.
So if you guys want to come.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good, actually.
We're all hungry.
Yeah, we eat a couple
What's
times
up, guys?
a day.
This is live on your channel?
Yes.
Maybe we could go live again later tonight and have a good chat.
Sure.
If you want.
I was just doing this as a test to see if I could do it, and it's been absolutely flawless. So
Awesome.
I'm confident now.
Awesome. Perfect.
Excellent.
See you guys.
All right, folks. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll continue to keep you updated as we go. I have some pottery shards that we pulled out of the earth, and I'll bring those along the next time I do a live like this, and I'll show you what some of these look like. I mean, just to leave you with this, one of the reasons that we have some of these shell mounds and these pottery mounds is because when the Mayan were here, they were, in need for salt. So what they do is they take these pottery bowls and so forth that they create, fill them with the salt water, and then bake them and let the water boil, and then the salt would be left on the inside. But the way that you get this salt is, in the process, the clay would actually break, and that's how you would retrieve that product. So there are all these little shards of these pots that are, in certain areas that we've identified and have actually dug and found exactly that. So very interesting, including the shells, like the conch shells that you'd find out here in certain areas when we know that, again, the Mayan were there. They're in the ground, but they're also on the topsoil, and some of them are so old that they almost look like they're petrified. So you're talking 1,000 to 1,200 years old, some of these shells, and the Mayans would fish them, bring them, throw them on the fire just in the shell, and they pop out, eat them, and toss them over into a trash pit is essentially what we're looking at. But I mean, it's absolutely incredible to see this firsthand and then be able to document this the way that, you know, I'd like to do it. So again, thank you so much. Reading some of your comments here. Thank you so much for being here, guys. We will certainly come back to you maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, whatever it dictates. We'll figure something out. But that's the update, and stay tuned. There's much more to come. Ciao.